Howdy and welcome to Buster's World. Today, as every topic this week has fallen within a very particular playlist that I created, today's topic is Simplify Your Life. And I'm going to basically, over the next several minutes, talk about how I came up with that topic and in what you can expect to be produced for that topic. So anyway, here we go. Oh, by the way, my digs today is not the Tacoma, but my room, and my granddaughter's at the park. My wife is in baking some chocolate chip muffins. So I got the room for the next hour. We'll see how that goes. You don't always get what you want or what you need. Sometimes that's a challenge, and sometimes that's privacy. So we'll see how this goes. Anyway, thank you for coming and enjoying me. Thank you for coming and joining with me. I don't know why I've started to slur my language. Maybe I've always done it, but now that I have to watch myself speak, maybe I'm more conscious of it. Who knows? Anyway, simplify your life. Most of the topics that I've chosen come directly out of experiences that I've had with my life. And I feel like I've lived a rather interesting life. I've had lots of experiences where God has had to teach me a lot of lessons. Most of the time with a 2x4. I don't know if that's because I'm stubborn or if I just don't know. But I think I've learned. I continue to learn. How's that? I don't want to say I think I've learned, because usually when I say something like that, God says, oh, you have another lesson to learn? You think you've learned what you need to learn? We'll see. Anyway, a number of years ago, this would go back to about August of 2004, I had been running a Homeland Security business since about September of 2001. And we had grown into a fairly, I want to say fairly large, but we had over 20 contractors who came from various Homeland Security backgrounds, and 10 employees, about 30 people. And we were providing training and educational services all over the United States. By that point, we had probably trained close to 20,000 people and had done work in several Fortune 500 companies. And right around that time, the new Department of Homeland Security was organized, and we had been working on state and local contracts. And all of our funding dried up overnight. And with the new Department of Homeland Security pulling funding away from state and local governments, and with the decision being made that things of a Homeland Security nature were going to be dealt with at the national level, and that local, state and local government wasn't going to have any connection to it. And so our contracts went away almost overnight. We still had some educational contracts, but the funding that supported the programs that we ran went away, and with it, like I said, our business almost overnight. There were much larger players in the field and competing on a national level, especially from where we were located in San Antonio, Texas. Most of the big players in Homeland Security were located in Washington, D.C., and I had no desire to leave San Antonio. And so anyway, we ended up losing our business, and we had, over the first couple of years as we were trying to grow our company and invested most of our life savings into it, and with a son off at college and a daughter at BYU, Idaho at the time. She ended up going on to BYU later, and 2 kids still at home. We were in a position where we were forced to start our life again. And we ended up losing most of our earthly possessions during that time. We lost our home, had a car repossessed. Because when I lost my business and I was applying, I was doing so at a time where the economy wasn't really popping, and I had spent some time looking for a job, and most of the places I would go to said that I'd made too much before to qualify into lesser positions. No one was willing to let a guy in his early 40s start to work in their business. And so I would say it's a fairly dark time. It was actually, at the time I was thinking, it's wow, here I am having to start over in my 40s. And we tried for an extended period of time here in San Antonio to try and right the ship. And I was very fortunate to have a military retirement, but my military retirement was not enough to support the life that we were living at the time. And so it was the first of many downsizings that took place. And then we made the decision in my early 40s that I was going to have to move back to Virginia, move in with my parents, or live on church welfare, which I had been in church leadership positions several over the years, and we had always advised people to look to their families first, and government second. I had made too much money before that to take advantage of any government programs, and so we ended up moving back home and starting over. Very humbling to move in with your parents with 2 adult children and your wife to start over. But we had to have a place where we could stabilize until I could find a job that could meet our needs. And so it was the first of many steps. And so anyway, this being downsized, my life was being forced to change. And as I've went through, because this was the first of many downsizings, many simplifications of my life. And I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was at the worst possible point that I could possibly be at that moment, and I was broken in just about every way. I had spent a significant amount of time before we went into this business fasting and praying and going to the temple, and I had invested heart, mind, and soul. I was working 6 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the morning. I was serving in the bishopric at the time. I had kids that were, when I first started business, they were late teenage years and lots of activities, and we were just going nonstop. Anybody that's had children and at that stage in your life, can get to be very busy. And during the course of my business, I had a couple of heart attacks in my early 40s. My heart was in perfect shape. I I ran and went to the gym. So, but the life that I was living, burning the candle at both ends and running nonstop, solving problems in my sleep and getting back to work, traveling. I played the role of director of operations for our business, so paying the bills, keeping the operational aspect of the business, but I also, supported the business by helping to develop curriculum and doing business development. And so again, it was a very challenging time. Now for me, I at that stage in my life, I was hard charging, and I enjoyed the challenge. And to me, at the time, it didn't seem stressful. It was intellectually and spiritually stimulated and engaged, and in a way that I had long sought after, and I felt like I was in the middle of something that was truly important, and just very excited, very excited. And so to have the rug pulled out so abruptly, and to have it all end almost as quickly as it started up was life-changing. So anyway, as we were in San Antonio, as the foreclosure sign went up in the front of our house, we always thought that we would be able to avoid it. With the writing on the wall and knowing what was happening, we knew that we were going to have to move, and there was no way that we were going to be able to turn the ship around in San Antonio. We had a couple of goodbye dinners with several of our friends on 2 separate occasions, and we had went out to one time we went out to a Chinese food restaurant to meet with a bunch of friends. On a separate gathering, we went out to it's like a Korean barbecue grill. It's called the Fire Hut, and both of those were in San Antonio. And over the final 2 weeks that we were in San Antonio before we left to go back to Virginia, where my parents were located at. And after we had eaten our first Chinese food meal, we got our fortune cookies. You've probably seen those. I think everybody does it. Even Panda does it. And but the places that we had went to, they did it. And so I'd received a fortune cookie at the very end of our meal. And the fortune cookie said, simplify your life and find great reward. And, obviously there had been lots of tears at that stage, but we've had a lot of experiences happen, and we've learned to laugh in difficult circumstances, and we've always had a fairly good sense of humor. You figure you could laugh or cry. We would cry in private, cry in our closet as we were on our knees praying. But when we were in public, we were very, we would try to engage humor to meet our challenges. And so simplify your life and find great reward. And I told Trace, I said, I feel like I'm being simplified. I feel like I'm being cut down. I feel like the axe had been laid at the roots and I was being laid over. And so I told Tracy, I said, I felt like I'm being simplified. But we laughed it off. Didn't give it a second thought. Thought that it was a funny fortune cookie, but most of the people in the group thought it was ironic, considering our situation at the time. So we laughed it off and we went about our business. And then a day or two before we were supposed to leave, we had met with another group of friends over at the Fire Hut. And we went out there and we ate our dinner, and at the end of the meal, got a fortune cookie again. And again, on the second fortune cookie, it said, simplify your life and find great reward. And I said, wow, I've never seen this fortune cookie in all my life. I've never seen that saying, but I've received it now at 2 separate restaurants over a 2-week period of time, specifically related to my situation. I figured, well, maybe God's trying to give me an answer to my prayers, because I'll tell you what, I was praying and it didn't make any sense to me. And And I was reading the scriptures, and I was going to the temple, and I wasn't I wasn't in a position to receive revelation the way I needed to do that. God needed to send me some inspiration through a fortune cookie. But the second time I received it, it's like, okay, well, it's applicable. Perhaps now I'm in the perhaps stage. Perhaps God is trying to speak to me, simplify my life, and find great reward. Maybe there is a great reward at the end of this, and I just can't see it. But so we took that, and we loaded everything into the one car that we had paid off, which at the time was it was a kid's car that became our car. It came back to us an old Ford Contour that had a lot of miles on it. It was a 5-speed, and we had loaded everything that we could into this car, all of our possessions, and we put the rest of our possessions in storage. And then we headed off to Virginia to start over. So we get to Virginia, and we're there looking for work. I've been there for about 2 weeks, and my wife, myself, my other 2 sons that are still living at home with us, we go off to a Chinese food restaurant. You know, I hadn't eaten lots of Chinese food, but in this little 30-day period, we ate Chinese food. And so we go to a Chinese food restaurant that's a couple miles down from where my parents' house was, and figured we'd go and check it out. We went in there for lunch, dinner. I can't remember exactly what it was, and ate our meal. In the meal, they brought us a fortune cookie, and for the third time, and in 3 different locations in 2 different states, I got the same fortune cookie: simplify your life and find great reward. And you know, by the mouth, two witnesses weren't enough for me, so I guess I needed a 3rd witness at a 3rd location. And it was very clear to me that my Father in heaven was telling me that that my life was going to be simplified, and that if I would yield to the instructions and the experiences that He would provide for me, that at some point in time I might find great reward. Now, I could not have projected what would have transpired from that day forward to the time in which I'm living, but it has been a series of instructive events that my life has been simplified. Now, I've come to learn, I'm 62 now, I've come to learn, I was, like I said, fairly intense for many years of my life. When I was in high school, I was an all-state athlete. I was a hard charger when I was in the Air Force, went into business. I was a hard charger before I started my business with an international technology firm where I did business development, and I just ran hard. I knew one speed, and that was high speed. And I loved the challenge. My mind was working all the time, and I was probably on a pathway to early passage, or to entering into to the eternal worlds well before and ahead of my time. And in fact, the cardiologist that I had when I was 42 years old told me that, your heart is strong, it's in good shape, but he says, if you don't change your lifestyle, my recommendation is that you quit what you're doing and go someplace else. At the time, I told him, I said, how do you quit your own business? And I've got people who depend upon me to, pay their paycheck, meet the bills, meet the obligations of the business. And, when I had the second heart attack 2 weeks after I had the first one, 4 months later was, and then the business, the change in the financial situation that supported our business happened. It was probably God intervening and saying, okay, it's time to pull the plug on this. I need you I need you to have you continue to live and to continue to serve your family and to continue to serve me. I'm not done with you. Now, humbling, difficult, challenging, and there was a lot of tears for a bit. And a cycle had started where I'd go work for a business, and the business would either go out of business or they would get sold. And until the point that the 2008 to 2012 financial crisis happened, and I found myself a nearly 50-year-old business professional without a college education, with a lot of experience, unemployed and unable to find work. I was out of work for 4 years applying for jobs. And I knew that if I went and I worked at minimum wage, that my picture would be turned to the wall. And after 4 years, I can't do this anymore. Very humbling. You put out hundreds of resumes and no calls. So there's a quote that President Hinckley shared regarding a man when he's unemployed and facing the trials of Job. I can tell you that in the quote he says that they were sorely tempted to curse God and die. I didn't ever curse God. I didn't choose death, but I tell you what, I was hanging on to the rod of iron with all my might, just hoping to be able to wake up from day to day and to be able to function and go into the next day. And we've survived, and we're still alive. And I've had extended periods of time I've been unemployed, but I've had my military retirement, and our family combined resources and found a way to make it through, and got our kids through college and through missions, and never stopped paying my tithing, never stopped contributing to my kids while they're in their missions, and doing all the other responsibilities. And how it is that money was ever left over at the end of the month during some of those seasons, I have no idea. I have no idea how we made it, but I remember my daughter when she was away at college and we were losing everything, and she says, "Do I need to come home?" And I said, "No, we're sticking with the plan. You're going to stay in college. You're going to have to get a job. I'm sorry. And you might have to take out a little bit more money on loans because we were planning on helping to provide for her education. But we were unable to help in any way. And the only way that I could help is to say, no, we're going to stick with the plan. And we're going to find a way to be successful regardless of the way things look." And so there's been a lot of hanging on for a long time. And there's a lot of stories. And the reason I've started this channel is because I'll tell you what, I have seen God's hands in my life in ways that I'm not sure many people see. And my wife and I at times I stopped just saying I'm unemployed. I tell people I'm retired. "Oh, you're retired in your 50s? It's like, yeah, I'm retired in my 50s. And they were thinking, well, you must have made a lot of money. It's like, no, I lost a lot of money. But anyway, we did a lot of things, and we have traveled a lot through the military hop system. I had my brother and his wife living in Germany for a couple of years, and I had my daughter after she got out of college, and she married a guy who got his degree in clinical psychology, and they spent 4 years in the 4 years in the Air Force, and their second through fourth year that they were in the Air Force, they were in England. And so we were able to travel to Europe, travel within Europe, travel in Germany, and Austria and Italy and Switzerland. We've had a lot of interesting experiences, and we have traveled throughout the United States. And because I have no house payment now because I'm living with my kids, that we're gonna have an RV, and we're gonna be able to travel again. So yeah, simplify your life and find great reward. Well, I'll tell you what, I have been able to invest more time in my wife and my children and my grandchildren. Healthy. We have traveled with them. We have just been able to do so much with our family, which probably wouldn't have happened if I'd have stayed on the course that we were at. I probably wouldn't even be here to enjoy those things. And we just have been in a position to be able to help out our children in unique and interesting ways when they went through challenges in their own lives. And God has blessed our lives tremendously. And my God is a good God. And my Savior, Jesus Christ, he is my best friend. And I'll tell you what, in this last 20 years, I thought I knew Christ. I thought I knew what kind of friend he was. But I'll tell you what, when I've had these experiences over the last 20 years, I've really gotten to know him in deep and intimate and personal ways. If you'd have asked me in advance, hey, you can have this, but you're going to have to go through this in advance to get it. I'd have probably said, well, I'm okay with where my relationship is with Jesus, But no, I made the decision to go forward and to. I didn't make the decision; the decisions were made for me. But I allowed myself to. I told the Lord, I know early on in that process when I started the business, I said, I want to do your will. If this is your will, I'm willing to go ahead and do it. And I have said that 100 times, and I have went down a lot of roads. And I would say that 99 out of the 100 roads that I've went down in the last 25 plus years, since I retired from the Air Force in December of '99. So it's we're 24 years down the road. About 99 out of the 100 roads that I've went down, I did not end up where I expected on any decision that I've made. But I'll tell you what, I have fasted and I have prayed and I have went to the temple. And either I am the worst, either I'm incapable of receiving revelation, or I've perfected receiving revelation. What I've learned over the last, over this period of time, is that my friend and Savior Jesus Christ is in the character development business. That the godly attributes of kindness and long suffering, gentleness and meekness, and love unfeigned, that he really cares about those things. And sometimes in success, those things are difficult to be achieved. But in failure and in obedience and in walking the roads that he'll ask us to walk, that those gold bars are found along those roads. I call it the journey to Moriah. When Abraham was asked to go up and sacrifice his son, and he went willingly. The Lord says, "This is what you need to do," and it's like, okay, let's pack it up, let's go and do it. Let's gather the wood, lay it on the altar. We're going to tie the hands. We're going to go off and follow it through. And I can tell you that is sort of the mentality that in order for me to be able to make it where we did, that's how we were bound with Christ, and he has just taught me so much as a result of that, and I love him. Anyway, so what can you expect out of Simplify Your Life? Well, in order to survive, we've had to downsize. We've had to think differently. We've had to live differently. And, when you don't have a place to put food storage, what do you think about? When you're living, anyway, everything from food storage to living and surviving. How did you do it? How do you do it? Well, I'll tell you what, we're living at a time and a season in the world where two family incomes are strapped to the max. Housing costs are unsustainable. Taxes are going up. The cost of electricity and water are going up. Every place you look, the cost of food, every family that I know of is strapped. And I don't care how much money they have, because they may have bought into their lifestyle 10 years ago, and it may have been maxed then and may have seen income increases, but everything else has increased around them, and many of them are looking about, how do I step down? How do I go less expensive? I can't afford the life that I have. And so in many ways, my wife and I, we were ahead of the curve. We were ahead of it. And the experiences that we've had in our life, I believe will have the opportunity to bless others. And in this Simplify Your Life play series I'll be discussing some of those things. I've watched a video. I've watched lots of YouTube videos, by the way. When you retire, you get free time. Sometimes you will go down the rabbit hole. And it's like off-grid living. As I mentioned in a previous video, our family, my sons and I own together some hunting lands that we bought. In the midst of our, we have nothing. It was like, how do we get something? None of us can afford to buy anything separately, and so we combined our family resources back around 2008, 2009, and we bought some hunting land, 32.9 acres, up in the Texas Hill Country, and we've kept it, and it's primitive land, and it's 5 miles off the beaten path, and we've spent a lot of time at it, and it's been a great blessing to our family. But it's like you start to think about things like that. How do we go off and buy something and keep it and not have to worry about it being stripped away from us? You have no possessions. You've lost your house. Your credit is destroyed. You can't buy a new house. Every time you try to get your head above water, the company you went to work for goes out of business. And you're grasping at straws just trying to survive. How do you do that? Well, I have a lot of experience in doing that, and then in finding meaningful purpose in life in the process. And so in this play series, Simplify Your Life, we're going to talk about those things and share some of the ideas and insights. But anyway, back to the YouTube videos. I had found out that there's some 3 million people in America, mostly elderly, that are living in vans, living in a tent, living on BLM land, traveling about, trying to survive. I think there was a movie that came out about someone who was living, I can't remember the name of the program, but you probably know what it was. It won a few Academy Awards a number of years ago, where it was a documentary that followed an elderly lady whose husband had died, and she couldn't afford to live the life that she was, and ended up living out of a van and traveling around. I think she was working at Amazon trying to make money where she could just survive. 3 million elderly people. Well, I'm elderly. I'm Social Security age, and I have a military retirement. Those two things, I've got full medical benefits through my military retirement. So I'm blessed. I really am. I am blessed in many ways, and blessed above and beyond so many people that I know. But I look at even the least expensive of solutions are almost out of the reach of most of the people who are living on Social Security. And I have developed great compassion in my life for people who struggle, people who are fighting and doing the very best that they know how, and trying to get above it and survive. And as I think about that, again, one of the reasons I started this channel is not only to go off and hopefully bring people to Christ through the experiences of my life by bearing witness and testifying and showing where even when you think that things are really bad in your life, you'll be able to go off and see the hand of God involved with it. But also, trying to find a way to help people who've had very similar struggles to try and find their way to rise above them and to continue to maintain faith and hope in very difficult and challenging times. As a former Homeland Security professional that dealt with emergency management operations in communities and terrorism and weapons of mass destruction and almost any dark topic that you can think of related to that season in which we were living, I am painfully aware of how quickly things can go bad in society. And it's, for most of us, we just don't want to think about it. But our nation is in very bad shape. Our world is in very bad shape. You're seeing the downfall of Western civilization, and it's taking place right before your eyes in the time and season in which you're living. And most of these events, whether it was World War I or World War II, there's like these little small triggers. You get the pressure built up, and you can start to see bad things happen around the world. And people are like aware, but they're like, I just don't want to think about it. But then something happens. There's a trigger event. And in that trigger event, everything changes. And if you're not prepared spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, temporally, those events can destroy you. It can destroy societies. Things can go really bad, really quick. And the best time to prepare for a disaster is well before it happens. And again, in this portion of my channel, it'll be those types of things. Simplify your life and find great reward. And to get you thinking out of the box a little bit differently, so that perhaps, when it hits the fan, you'll be ready. And maybe some changes you can make in your life now that you can go off, so that you can maybe even look at downsizing and simplifying your life and putting yourself into the best position to meet your needs and responsibilities, even in the worst of times. And this is the part of the channel that I'm most excited about. And I look forward to being able to share some ideas and thoughts with you, and also being able to receive great insights from you and the things that maybe you've traveled a similar path, or maybe you've thought about these things and have taken action and effort in your life to prepare yourself and your family. And if that's the case, maybe we'll learn from one another. But anyway, that's all I have for today's video. I thank you for stopping by. I hope you had a great time. Don't feel sorry for me. I have been supported and sustained by God through the entire time. Doesn't mean that there haven't been tears, deep tears, and a lot of sorrow. But I have had so many profound experiences as a result of the pathway that I've chosen. And I did choose it because I fasted and prayed, and I put myself on that path, and I said, Lord, I want to be able to do the things you want me to do. And as a result of that, through my choice and my relationship with Christ, he's allowed me to experience things that I would have never experienced. And for that, I'm grateful. Would I want to go back and do it all over again, knowing where I'm at today now? I don't know. But I am grateful for where he has taken me and for what I have learned. And I know I wouldn't want to give away any experience that I've had. Not a one. No matter how painful it was to learn it. But anyway, thanks for stopping by. That's all I have for today. And we'll check in with you later. Bye. Oops, sorry.